All right, folks, let's go ahead and get going. Good morning. Happy Town Hall Day. It's July. We are more than halfway through the year. Cannot believe it. It's pretty amazing. We have a ton to get through today, a lot of exciting improvements on ingestion performance and some up and coming UI or kind of like workflow improvements. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. I'm going to do a quick run through of community and roadmap. As always, we'll move over to Shirshanka and give our project updates. And then we'll start jumping into our UI and ingestion improvements. We also do have a DataHub 201 today. So we're going to be kind of digging a little bit deeper into various ways that you can enrich your metadata. So moving right along. Our community is still continuing to grow at a rapid pace. We are just shy of 4,000 members in our Slack, which is pretty amazing. I think we actually ended 2021 with 2,000 members. So we've doubled our community in, just shy of 7 months. We're still seeing right around 1,000 weekly active users. This actually went up in the last month. Interestingly, we did see a dip in the volume of messages coming in, but still, we still have a ton of activity happening. And I think I've definitely noticed a little bit of a slowdown from summer vacations, people taking that much deserved time off. So we're still happy to see just a lot of really great excitement for the community. As we've started doing in prior months, we are starting to look at, as a community, just the support volume that's coming in. So we're still averaging around, from a PR standpoint, we're still averaging around 40 PRs per week or opened per week, and just around 10 issues open per week. Like I said, we are seeing a little bit of dip in activity due to summer, but still, we have some really great contributions coming through, as well as work from the core team. So we're definitely excited to see the volume stay consistent within the project. We're chugging right ahead. From a support standpoint in our Slack, we are still seeing right around 500 or so messages within our support channels. And this goes across our UI, troubleshoot, getting started, ingestion, and all things deployment channels. And like I said, I know I've said this before, but just a reminder, if you're able to jump in and help your community members, and if you are not on mute, thank you so much. If you're able to jump in and help out other community members, this really frees up a ton of bandwidth for the core team so we can focus on moving through those PRs and addressing issues. And we really, really, really appreciate that support. We're actually going to jump right on into roadmap. So for Q3, I'm going to break this down into 3 different sections. First, we're going to look at user experience. So over the next over the next 2 months, we're going to be looking or building out more support for bulk metadata enrichment. So that's anything from bulk edits in the UI. We're actually going to have a sneak peek for that. Also some increased support for CSV enrichment, which we've demoed in prior town halls. Support for patch update should not be here. That's a separate one, so just ignore that for now. In terms of data lineage, we are going to start working on our very popular and effective feature called impact analysis. So actually understanding column level impact and making it easy for folks to understand what will happen if there's a breaking change at the column level and kind of the downstream impact of it there. We'll also do a little bit of enhancement on our PK and FK relationships, just make that a little bit more user-friendly within the UI. And then we'll continue to make improvements for our glossary term and domain usability. So this is around just applying a sort order for glossary terms. We're actually going to be able to add entities from a glossary term page. I think John is also going to be showing a brief demo of that today. Hopefully I didn't spoil too much there. And then also the ability to assign a domain to a glossary term. From a metadata ingestion standpoint, we are very optimistic that we'll be able to support automatic column level lineage for Snowflake specifically. This is due to Snowflake's new support for actually making that metadata available to us in a reliable way. And then also enhancing our file-based lineage. So this is something that a community member demoed for us a few months ago, where you can assign lineage through a YAML. We're going to enhance that so you can also assign column level lineage through YAML. That way, if you want to do some manual mapping of lineage, you can do it that way. Last but not least, developer experience. We are going to continue to be improving our ease of onboarding. So please expect some improvements and reorg of our doc site. I'm really excited for the work to come there. We're also going, we have a community member who's kicked off the work to remove Confluent Schema Registry as a hard requirement. I know that this has been a blocker for some folks within the community. So we're going to rally around this and push that through this quarter. From an SDK standpoint, this is where we're going to be supporting patch updates, and then also some templates for enrichment during and after ingestion. So some really exciting stuff coming in over the next couple of months. Keep an eye for updates. And if you guys have any questions about this, I will, like I did last quarter, I'll actually record a walkthrough of our roadmap and post it in the channel, so you guys can revisit that and we can yeah, any questions you have, just send them my way. All right. Every month, this is my favorite part. Our community is freaking amazing. I asked yesterday in announcements if any folks had community shout outs that they wanted to give. Monica DM'd me, she's from the Etsy team, wanted to give a shout out to Asim, who has been really hands-on in helping them set up multi-project support within BigQuery. This is actually on one of our highest voted feature requests. So we're really happy to see that not only that Asim was able to push through that functionality, but that he was able to partner up really closely with the Etsy team and help them be successful there. So as a reminder, if you guys want to give a shout out to anyone, I'd love to highlight them during town hall. Please just feel free to send me a DM and let's give some much deserved love to the people who are helping each other out. Speaking of helping each other out, here are some of the folks. This is as many as I could find in the time that I had, folks that have helped out one another within the community. There was some, I don't think there was anyone here. This is just an extra @ sign, so I didn't leave anyone out there. But as always, Excel just is going above and beyond, helping in every channel everywhere. And then big shout out to all these other folks who have jumped in and helped out. We really truly appreciate you guys helping us there. It frees up a lot of our bandwidth to keep the project moving forward in other areas. Oh, Ben March was the one up there. Sorry. So Ben, you should have been on this page. Shout out to Ben. Thanks. All right, let's take a look at our some of the standout contributions. Shirshanka, I'm going to actually have you talk through these if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. It's so great to see the community sending in contributions that are not just around the edges, but also in the core parts of the stack. So, you know, I was initially when co-founders PR came in, I was shocked because the number of files that were changed in that one PR was 71. I was like, how are we even going to be able to accept a PR that has so many touch points? And he had just gone in and refactored the entire Python code base and like made it much cleaner and nicer to work with. So we got it in, and I'm really glad that we have community members that are stepping up and actually improving the quality of our code. That's amazing. Another one that really caught my attention was Amanda's PR on, they actually first filed a feature request saying, hey, on the stats page, we would love to copy a value of a particular sample value that has been sampled and then use it somewhere else. So they posted a feature request for it and then followed it up with a PR. It was just modeling such amazing behavior, exactly how we want people to be interacting with the project and the community. So I even put a gold star label on that particular PR because it was so great. And there are a lot of others as well. There was a very small but impactful PR around adding the audit actor earn to every single write that happens into DataHub. It was just something we had missed in our first round at this. And now we are able to get, when you use the timeline API or any of the other APIs to look at the audit log of DataHub, you can actually see exactly who made the changes, either from the UI or from the ingestion pathway, which is great. There are a few others as well, support for SASL for our Kafka setup, adding another endpoint, another API in our Python package to support getting entities and aspects in one go. So a lot of great, small, but very impactful contributions that have happened over the last month. So I'm really happy to see people really making important contributions to make kind of the fit and finish of this product get to that next level. That's all I had.
Awesome.
And yeah, on kind of the community talk side, I had a talk, I don't even remember when, but it was, I think, less than a month ago, right, Maggie?
Yes, I think so.
This was Data and AI Summit. I talked about, connecting the dots with DataHub. Some of the material will seem familiar, but a lot of it was actually different. So I would highly encourage that you go check it out. I think the talk is live on YouTube now, live meaning available on YouTube now. And despite that thumbnail being very unflattering and making it seem like I was sleeping the whole time I was talking, apparently I wasn't. That was just me meditating for a second, trying to remember my lines. All right, so moving straight on to project updates. As Maggie said, we had a little bit of a slowdown in summer, well-deserved time off for people who were probably trying to do other things than just contribute to the DataHub project. So good job. We had still a pretty high number of PRs, honestly, 150 plus. We still have a very healthy backlog that I look at every morning, almost 50 open, I think 50 plus open PRs that we're still looking at. A lot of new contributors, again, showing that our project continues to grow. A bunch of first-time contributors. In fact, some new contributors to projects that repos that you may not be as familiar with. So DataHub Helm is our official Helm chart. So we're getting some contributions there as well. And DataHub Actions is the companion project to DataHub that allows you to listen to all of the metadata changes that are happening and take action on them. And we're starting to get some interesting contributions there as well. So really happy to see those other ecosystem projects also taking off. In terms of product improvements that have happened, I already talked about the small but impactful copy function improvement in the product. We've gone in and made substantial improvements in performance. So you'll see with the newer releases, both UI responsiveness as well as the platform's responsiveness is much, much better. I think in many cases, we were able to shave off more than 50% of latency on search and a few of the really high complexity pages on the DataHub application. So really happy. Search is going to feel much more snappy, and even entity page loads are getting much snappier. In addition to that, we've had improvements in the CSV connector. We've had improvements in managed ingestion. Chris is going to get into that, so I'm not going to spoil the party there. And we talked about siblings last time, those, I don't know who remembers those, simians who really got friendly with each other. So DBT and your warehouse tables, right? So we went back and did more improvements to it. So now you can not only view those combined entities as one thing, you can also pull back the curtain and look at them separately. So you can look at what does the BigQuery table descriptions and schema really look like, as well as what does the DBT version of this look like, and look at them separately and also combine them. So that's all product stuff. On the metadata integration side, as we already talked about, we have support for multi-project, support for BigQuery, some improvements in the BigQuery connector. I'll talk about it in just a bit. We have a new Salesforce connector, so that's pretty exciting. We're starting to integrate with the SaaS ecosystem and starting to bring in metadata about other things that are not just classic data stores or data platforms. And then if someone remembers the circuit breaker and the Python APIs that were demoed at the Airflow Summit, as well as in the town hall, as well as in my Spark talk, we actually released all of them. So now you can actually integrate in your Airflow DAGs or your Spark DAGs with the DataHub assertions and operation signals to be able to stop pipelines from running before they can process more bad data. And then finally, last but not least, on dev experience and platform, we have some small but hopefully useful improvements to the quick start. Now you can kind of quick stop your quick start instead of having to fiddle around with Docker and figuring out how to stop the Docker compose that you just started up. So that's just a DataHub quick start -- stop. You can also back up your quick start instance. So if you've got a bunch of stuff that you've done and you're like, oh, this looks amazing, I now need to demo it to my stakeholders tomorrow, you can take a quick backup by just doing DataHub quick start -- backup. And then once you have that backup, you can restore it, maybe on your machine or maybe on a different person's machine. And finally, if you have port conflicts that are happening with the quick start, like, we use ports that are pretty commonly used by other systems as well. We support for port mapping now, so you can kind of map to free ports that exist on your machine. We also have new models for dashboard usage, which we will talk about in a bit. And there were a bunch of intermittent 401 errors that a lot of people were running into, and we've gone in and fixed that. We think we got them all. So let us know if you're still experiencing 401 errors after upgrading to the new release, but I think we got it. So we shouldn't be seeing any more intermittent 401 errors showing up during ingestion. All right, and so moving on, I think this is something that John wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah, I'll just quickly give an overview here. So some of you may have noticed on the demo site that we rolled out some improvements to the search cards for data sets and dashboards. And this was based on some of the community feedback that people would like to see additional context that we're able to capture surfaced at a higher level in those search cards. So for data sets, we've added the row count, the queries last month, the number of unique users that we've got from the usage connectors, and then when the table was last modified, if it's supported for the platform. And then for dashboards, we have views, unique users, last updates, and then the ability to actually click into the dashboard, in Looker, for example, directly from the search preview. So looking for feedback on the updated search cards. Hopefully people will like them. That's pretty much all I have. Back to you, Shirshanka.
Awesome. And going on with kind of these fit and finish kind of improvements, one of the feedback we've often received is that people used to get confused about when a particular entity was last seen by DataHub and when that entity last changed. And so we've kind of gone in and simplified the language and the UX around that. So now when you go into the schema tab of a table, so in this case, like pet profiles, you're able to see when DataHub last observed it. So this basically represents when ingestion last ran for this table, and we saw that it still exists and we were able to get its schema. But then also, we're able to show you when we first saw this. So this gives you a sense of the overall time for which this schema has been observed in this particular table. So it gives you a sense of reliability, stability, right? And this, along with this, the history view, which we'll get into very soon, gives you a good sense of each particular version of schema that this particular table has. When did we first see it and when did it last change? And with that, we are here to announce some sad but happy news. I think we've been having a lot of different versions of Python that we've kind of allowed on our plane, right? And one of those snakes is going to get, sent out. And I think we've got Herschel here to tell us about why we decided to say bye to this particular one and why we're excited about it.
Yeah, so you might have seen that Python 3.6 hit end of life in last December. And since then, a lot of projects have started dropping support for Python 3.6. Notably, some of the official Python, for example, their types repository and their types checker are starting to drop support for Python 3.6. And so it's kind of high time that we move off of it as well. This shouldn't impact the vast majority of people in our community based on the download stats of the PyPy package only about 1% of our downloads come from users on 3.6. So it shouldn't impact most of you in any way. But if you do have concerns about it, please let me know. Just DM me on the Slack channel. And for timeline, we're thinking probably the next couple of weeks, and we'll put in sufficient warnings and messaging around the package so that nobody ends up in a weird state and doesn't know what to do about it. We're happy and excited about this because it'll enable us to, stay on a version that's supported, use packages that serve as their dependencies that are also supported and actively maintained, and just keep the overall Python package and its ecosystem up to date. Back to you, Shirshanka.
Cool. And welcome back,
One-
Harshil.
Yeah, one thing we should call out is that Harshil has officially joined the Acryl data team, and we are overjoyed to have him with us full time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Happy to have
great
you,
to be here.
buddy.
All right, moving
sorry.
on. Moving on, one quick thing. In case you don't know, we now support incremental profiling in Snowflake and BigQuery. What this means is if you've got too many tables and you just want to profile the tables that have changed, which makes complete sense, all you have to do is turn on that first flag up there. I think we need to make the name a little bit more easy to understand, but what it means is only profile this table if it has been updated in the last X days. So the default, I think, is 1 day or something. If you set it, most of our customers, as well as like early community members that are trying it out, are setting it to like a day or a week, depending on what their velocity of their warehouse is. So choose the right number for you, but it allows you to basically keep your dataset profiles fresh and at the same time not unnecessarily profile data that hasn't changed. A couple of more things we've added: table size limits and row size limits, again, to keep your profiling costs low and help you to focus on the important stuff. Moving on, is Aditya going to talk to this one?
Yes.
Yeah,
ahead,
I can
Aditya.
jump in. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all again. So we made a few changes to how the schema history feature looks and feels this month. So, we heard your feedback that the blame label that we had before was kind of confusing and, didn't have the best connotation, especially for non-technical DataHub users. So we wanted to simplify the experience. So we made two big changes. Now it's easy as clicking that like audit icon to toggle viewing column history on and off instead of that like big normal blame label that we had before. So a little bit less clutter. We also simplified it so that if a data set only has one version, we actually omit the version selector just to, again, remove clutter and also make it clear that there's only one version of the data set. So we hope that it improves the experience for all you guys. But if you have any feedback, like please DM me on Slack, and I'm happy to hear out any ideas you might have. Thanks.
Cool. And with that, over to Professor Chris.
All right.
And Atul, I'm glad you're here. Atul was really gave us some really great feedback about the blame view. So thank you for that feedback. And the more that we understand how your users are interacting with the product, it helps us make better informed decisions. So really, really appreciate it.
All right. Agreed. Cool. So hey, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about our UI-based ingestion and some of the improvements that we're making to it. All right. So today, if you want to set up a new ingestion source through the UI, you first have to go to your ingestion tab and click new source. You can then select from a grouping of provided sources, as you can see here in this screenshot. And then you need to fill out your recipe using a UI-based YAML editor. However, as many of you can imagine, this isn't necessarily the most user-friendly experience. How do I know what fields are needed for my ingestion source? How do I know what these fields even do to my ingestion runs? What if I make a typo or a spelling mistake, or even a formatting mistake? What if you're not used to working with YAML files and it's confusing and intimidating? In reality, users are often struggling with this step for these reasons, having to constantly reference our doc site or ask questions to the community or peers that might have more experience in this area. Therefore, it's very common for users to make mistakes in their recipes. However, the only way to know if there's even an issue in your recipe is to try running it and maybe even waiting a little while, setting up the whole flow and just hoping that it works. Also, so if it does fail, then you have to have the fun of sifting through some monster logs, maybe to simply learn that you misspelled one of the fields. Not very much a good time, if you ask me. And I'm sure also many of you have been in this situation. So we got to thinking, how can we make this process easier for our users? Can we help prevent basic mistakes or even answer some maybe questions that people might have along the way? So in order to make UI-based ingestion more approachable for the average user, we've started rolling out some new changes that I'm going to be talking about and showing you here. So in order to show these new changes, I'm actually just going to hop straight into a demo. So let me pull this guy up. All right. So now when you go to your ingestion tab and choose to create a new source, we are now offering UI-based forms in order to help the average user create a recipe that they want and they need. So let's check out a common connector, Redshift. So now, instead of tossing you in the deep end with a YAML file with some comments, we now walk you through the steps of creating a recipe in a much more helpful way. We break this down into 3 different steps. First is the connection section, which handles, as you guessed it, all the fields necessary for connecting to your source of choice. And then after that, we have the filter section. And then this section is going to allow you to write patterns for allowing or denying certain assets. You can see they're broken down into different sections for the asset type that you care about and what's specific to the source. And then finally, we have this advanced section. And this is going to be some of the more common fields used in recipes, but aren't necessarily required in order for you to get things going. Not only do you not need to reference our doc site to figure out what fields are needed for your source, but you now have access to tooltips that are going to be providing you some information about what these fields actually are and what they're doing. So now you can be a little bit more confident in what you're doing when you're checking stuff or adding things together. Also, I'm here to say, don't you worry though, YAML file lovers, because we still provide the same functionalities we always have with managed ingestion. And we can go up here to this little toggle and check out the YAML file. So here you can actually edit your YAML file directly. And I'll say, it's not specifically one way or the other, form or YAML, it is both. So let's change this host port, for example. I'm just going to change it to something silly like test123. That should update and be reflected in our form, which, yes, you can see it here. And you can actually edit the form and therefore see changes here right in your YAML file. You can also add more specific fields to configure and configurations for your YAML file that might not be added in the form, but are available for this connector. You can check those out on our doc sites, whatever. So if I wanted to add a limit, for example, and I can set that, I can go to my form, change other stuff and whatnot, and then my limit's still going to be there, and I'm going to be able to submit that, and it will work just nicely. All right. So with this next release, we plan on providing forms for several different connectors. The ones that with this release currently are BigQuery and Redshift, which I just showed you guys. Snowflake as well, but I'm going to be getting to that in 1 second. Looker and Tableau. Our plan is to continue rolling these forms out for different sources over time. They're pretty quick to get going, so our hope is to get them out as soon as possible to you guys for all the major sources that people care about. All right, now onto the final piece of what I wanted to show you guys. So this feature aims to solve the problem of where you need to fill out a recipe, schedule it, all that sort of good stuff, and then wait what could be a long while just to determine if you've even set things up properly and you can even establish a connection with this source. So I'm going to go to Snowflake like I talked about. We are now rolling out the ability to test your connection with different ingestion sources. So you can check that box before you even have to worry about more specifics like what assets you want to include or not include, whether you care about profiling or lineage or whatever. So now I'm going to demo this feature live to see if I can establish a connection with our Snowflake source. And for demo purposes, I prepared a recipe that I'm just going to copy paste in here. I could fill it out through the form, but this is going to be quicker. You can see it all updates in the form, pretty fun. So let's test this connection. So the first time you do it, it could take a little bit longer, but here it shouldn't take too long, maybe 5 to 10 seconds or so. And boom, there we go. You officially tested your connection with the credentials that you provided. Now we can know for certainty that our credentials are all set. So not only does this help with debugging issues later on, but you're also going to know straight away all the different capabilities that are afforded to you with your connection credentials. So as you can see here, we list these capabilities and give you the thumbs up if you have access to it. We'll obviously also let you know if there's any issues, such as like you can't connect because your credentials are wrong. Maybe you misspelled something, or maybe you didn't fill out all the required fields. And then also, depending on your connection configuration, you might not have access to all the different capabilities depending on roles or whatever. So in order to show you guys what that might look like, I'm going to actually update this. If I get rid of our role here, I should still be able to establish a connection and have access to most of my sources, or excuse me, my capabilities, but not necessarily all of them. So let's try it again. Let's see what happens. It's going to wait. It's a good time. All right, and there you go. So you can see once I removed that, I have access to most things, but I don't have access to table level lineage, for example. And also we provide you with a nice helpful reason as to why you don't have access to this. So should help you in debugging and figuring out what you need to do in order to get that capability, if that is a capability that you desire. All right, I'm gonna go back to the presentation. So luckily, you don't have to wait long for this feature as it's going out with our next release. And as I said, over time, we're going to be introducing more and more forms for the different sources, more test connection functionality for different sources, and actually even more fun features that we're going to make configuring your sources and your recipes even easier. So keep an eye out. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Chris. Ton of love for you in the chat. Professor Collins in the house. We love to see it. All right, we're going to move over to John for a sneak peek on some upcoming functionality for bulk edits in the UI. John, I imagine you're sharing, yes?
Yes, please.
All
And while we
right.
switch over to John, just a quick plug. The same capabilities that Chris demoed in the UI are also available in the CLI. So you can do DataHub ingest, -c, config file, and then -- test source connection. And basically what that does is instead of running the ingestion, it'll just test the source connection and give you a capability report. So everything that you saw in the UI available on the command line as well. So you can decide which one works for your case.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely a tough act to follow. I think this is going to become a trend. Going after Professor Collins, not the easiest task. So I'm going to be talking about something that we've at Acryl been working on the past few weeks, and that will be available not in this release, but in the next release, which is called bulk editing via the UI. And I'm going to start with just a scenario to introduce the problem and then our solution to it. So let's imagine, I'm a data analyst at my company, and I've been given a task, which is to assign a needs review tag to all of my Hive tables that I've ingested from Hive. Let's imagine I have about 100. Of course, this could be a lot more in reality, but we'll stick with 100 for this example. So let's look at how we could solve this problem using the tools that we have today provided by DataHub. So one option is that we can add the tag to each table through DataHub's web UI. So what would this look like? Well, first, I would probably search for all of my Hive tables, and then I would kind of iterate through them one by one and add that tag using the add tags modal there. Now, the problem here is that this is one at a time, like very high friction. And if I have to do this for 100 data sets, this is going to take me all day. So not ideal. Now, if I'm a little bit more savvy or more technical, actually, I may think of another solution, which is to add the tags to all of these entities via our GraphQL API using the add tag mutation. And what would that look like? Well, first, I would write a Python script that would find me all of the Hive assets. Maybe I would issue a search query. And then second, I would issue add tag mutations for all of those entities. And hopefully it would just work. Now, the downside to this is that it's really just not practical or desirable for most users, including technical users. I personally am a software engineer, and I don't want to do this. So what we're introducing is a new solution to changing entities in bulk via the DataHub UI, and that's what we're calling bulk editing from the UI. So at this point, I'm going to jump into a demo of what this will look like over here in my DataHub. There's a few different surface areas where we're going to be allowing you to make changes in bulk. The first one is on the search page. So let's go and actually search down for all of my Hive assets. So now I actually have 8. In reality, imagine this is 100. Once I've searched down to the assets I care about, I can go ahead and click this drop down and then click edit. And what this will allow me to do is have a selection of the assets on the results page, maybe even all of them, and then take some action on them. So you can see I can do things like adding owners or removing owners, adding glossary terms, removing glossary terms, tags, domains. And you'll notice deprecation is grayed out because actually this action is not supported for everything that I have selected. We don't support deprecation for databases and schemas. So let me unselect these if I wanted to use deprecation. And now we can obviously use that action. But what I'm going to demo is just adding a tag. So I'm going to go ahead and click add tag. I'm going to search for needs review. And then I'm just going to add it to all of them at once. So you can see this is pretty useful for this kind of batch updating case. Obviously, I still have all these selected, so I can continue to make changes, or I can just exit my selection and be done. So this is the first surface area. But what you're going to see when we roll this out is that this is going to appear on every kind of search surface area that we expose in the product. So for example, if we go to this domain, we can see all of the entities inside of it. This is, again, a search surface where we can take batch actions. So we can select everything, maybe on the first page of this domain and then do something here as well. The final thing I'd like to demo is being able to kind of bulk apply domains and glossary terms from the profiles themselves. So maybe I know that there's a bunch of assets in my ecosystem that should be under data engineering, and I don't want to go and assign that domain one by one. I can actually come right into this domain page, click add assets, and then go ahead and search for the assets that I may care about and add the domain. So maybe everything owned by DataHub. Right. And there you have it. So it's the same thing for glossary terms. We're going to be rolling this out for them as well. Quickly, I'll show that. So same exact modal where you can search, filter, select, and then take some action in batch. We've also added this handy dropdown that allows you to change the number of results per page so that your batches can be pretty large, maybe 100 at a time. All right, and with that, I'll jump back into the presentation. So a quick recap, the features we're rolling out in the next release, not this release, are search, select, enrich, with all the core enrichments that you would care to do: owners, glossary terms, tags, domains, deprecation, and more. And in terms of availability, again, this will be in the next release, which is scheduled for 8/12/2022, and it will support tags, terms, domains, owners, deprecation, and hopefully soft deletion, which will make cleaning up assets much easier from the UI. All right, with that, I think I'll hand it back to Maggie.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. I am really, really hyped for this one. Really, really, really hyped for this one. It's so exciting. All right, let's head over to Shirshanka. We're going to talk about some improvements or streamlined metadata ingestion.
Awesome. It's raining ingestion today overall, I think, right? So we've gotten a lot of feedback around things that are working well and also things that are not quite working as amazingly as we would expect. One common one that comes up often, and we see this both in the open source DataHub adopters as well as Acryl customers, is people forget that we have two connectors often for the same warehouse. So Snowflake, BigQuery, we have two different connectors that bring in slightly different metadata for each warehouse. So Snowflake, the primary connector, brings in table schemas, columns, descriptions, and lineage, and it uses show tables and additional queries to get all of that metadata out. And then there's the Snowflake usage connector that gets your usage counts, both table as well as columns, so the stop users as well as kind of the operational history of the table. And historically, the reason we split those apart was because the first one we actually did it for was BigQuery. And with BigQuery usage, the kind of permissions you needed to get access to the logs, as well as the kind of protocol that was being used, was so different that it felt kind of weird to mash up both these sources into one. And so we repeated the pattern for Snowflake and then repeated it for a few more warehouses. But 1 year down this road, we're realizing it's not quite what we had anticipated in terms of ease of use. And it's not ideal. Most people do one, and then they come to the Snowflake dataset page, table page, and they're like, huh, why don't I have my queries in here? Why don't I have top users? There are all these amazing things. How do I get them? And so we're making big improvements to combine these connectors together so that you only have one connector to configure, and you can get the benefits of both of these streams of metadata using a single connector. Next slide. There's another common mistake that people end up doing is that the allow deny patterns have to be configured twice, once for the Snowflake source and once for the Snowflake usage source. And if you don't line them up exactly the same way, you can get usage for some tables and then metadata for others, or vice versa. And it's a mess. So those are kind of two common problems that people run into with kind of the split connector approach. And then if you go further down, even for that base connector that we have, the one that pulls out technical schemas and things like that, the first time we wrote these connectors, we layered them on top of SQL Alchemy. And SQL Alchemy is great because it is, a generic connector system. It can, as long as you have a dialect, you can go get a bunch of metadata about anything that you can connect to. So it allowed us to build a lot of connectors with low amount of effort. But if you look at what that connector does under the covers, what is SQL Alchemy doing to get metadata out from the source? It's actually pretty expensive. Essentially, there's a first query that essentially does the equivalent of show databases. And then for each database, it looks at all the schemas in the database. And then for each schema, it looks at all the different tables. And then for each table, it goes and gets descriptions and other metadata. So essentially, the number of queries is order of number of databases times number of schemas times number of tables. It can take a while. For most production warehouses, we end up seeing it taking from 5 minutes for small ones to 20 minutes to sometimes even 30 minutes to an hour, right? And that's not ideal. Moving on, what we wanted to do was move to a much more efficient way of ingesting, where instead of depending on the SQL Alchemy connector, we just use the official client. So for example, for the Snowflake source, if we use the official Snowflake client and we make more efficient queries, we could actually do it in order, D times S, where the first query just gets the databases. And then for each database, we can either get all the schemas and the table metadata using one query, or if it's too much, then for each schema, we can just get the table metadata. And we were like, let's try this out. And let's see what happens. How much can we actually shave off of these latencies? And the results were actually pretty surprising. There's an open PR. The future is actually here. We have an open PR that proposes adding a new connector. We're calling it the Snowflake beta connector. And Mayuri ran some tests against the long tail deployment. And we were able to bring the latencies. And this long tail is just a simple warehouse. It's not really a production warehouse. And even there, we're able to shave the latencies from like 4.5 minutes to just 30 seconds, which is amazing. And I can only imagine how much we'll be able to improve the latency of like real production warehouses with thousands and thousands of tables. So good news, the PR is up. We'll probably merge it sometime later this week. It is compatible with the current Snowflake connector in terms of getting schemas, lineage, and table level profiling. So if that's all you're using your current Snowflake connector for, you can actually move to this right away. Couple of caveats: stateful ingestion is not yet supported, and column level profiling is not yet supported, but it's coming soon. So next slide. We're first going to roll out the connector as part of the next release with these caveats. Try it out, give us feedback, help us improve it. We'll follow up really quickly with addition of stateful ingestion, column level profiling, and adding in the usage capabilities from the usage connector. So that will give us like everything we wanted: a fast, efficient connector with a unified config profile that allows us to get both user statistics as well as regular technical metadata. Once we do that, we'll deprecate the current Snowflake and Snowflake usage connectors, flip the pointers, and make this be the official Snowflake source. And then we're going to repeat this for BigQuery. And let us know where else you want us to repeat the same pattern for. We'll kind of gauge, obviously, based on community demand for which other systems to go after. Super excited about this. The latency of ingestion has been something that people have been talking about for a while, as well as this duplication of ingestion. So this should, again, simplify things up a tremendous amount for everyone. And that's all I had.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Shirshanka. All right, so we're going to move on to our last session. Every once in a while, we will do kind of a DataHub 101, which is kind of more of like the basics of the fundamentals of DataHub. Today, we're actually doing a DataHub 201, so a little bit more advanced, and we're going to focus on metadata enrichment. And like Shirshanka said, today is very heavy on it. We're talking a lot about ingestion. We're talking a lot about metadata ingestion, or enrichment, excuse me. So let's dig on into this. So let's set the scene really quick. You and your team have successfully ingested metadata into DataHub. We have your stack is pretty straightforward. You have Snowflake for your warehouse. So we've ingested schemas, tables, usage, profiling, basically everything that Shirshanka just covered. From dbt, we've ingested our models and dbt test outcomes. And Looker, we've ingested explores, looks, and dashboards. So that's great. We have kind of the foundation there. But now it's actually time to push it one step further and start to enrich your metadata. So if we take a look at our at just a sample page, so this is our pet profiles data set. What do we mean by metadata enrichment? Like what are the ways that you can do it? What are some of the options there? So first and foremost, when we talk about metadata enrichment, we mean applying kind of a plain language definition. So that could be at the, in this example, the data set level itself, or even down to the column level. The next piece of it is ownership. In DataHub, we have a few different concepts of ownership. So it could be anything from a technical steward to a business user or a stakeholder, but really just helping people understand who to go to when you have questions and who's responsible for those entities. The next part of it is tags. So these are more kind of like social tags, or kind of ways to kind of organize or group your entities together in a less governed way, so a little bit more flexible there. And again, you can add tags at the data set level or even down to the column level if you'd like. The next one is glossary terms. So these are going to be more of our governed business terms that really describe how the data entity, or the DataHub entity, excuse me, relates back to a business either measure or definition, et cetera. Again, those can be defined at the data set level or the column level. And then last but not least, the domain. So a domain is really popular in data mesh implementations and just kind of providing this logical grouping of entities within an organization. So those are all the ways that you can enrich metadata, but what are the ways that you like practically do it, right? Practically speaking. So first and foremost, we talk about this idea of shift left a lot, and we're going to go into detail. But so first and foremost, you can enrich at the source and then ingest. You can transform your metadata prior to ingestion. You can do a bulk import using our CSV enrichment. You can do ongoing enrichments via our API, or you can just do manual enrichment ad hoc as needed from the DataHub UI. So let's actually dig into these a little bit. When we talk about shift left, what we're saying is if and when you are defining your metadata or enriching that metadata at its source, we want to extract that as much as possible. So for this, in this example, in this very simple stack, we have Snowflake, dbt, and Looker. In Snowflake, one way that you can start to define or enrich this metadata is by providing column level descriptions or table level descriptions, which we will automatically extract. For dbt, there's this idea of meta annotations. So this is where we can start to map ownership. We can start to map tags, terms, domains. It's super flexible. This is also true for our support for protobuf, where you can annotate the schema there and do some mapping that way. And then last but not least, in Looker, if you are annotating or adding descriptions within your LookML, we'll automatically extract that. So it could be anything from that field level description, adding tags to it, et cetera. So the idea here is that, and really this is the preferred and kind of like most bulletproof way, I'd say, to consistently enrich your metadata, where you really want to do it where the code is changing and evolving as the ingestion or the creation or transformation of data evolves over time. So this provides us a really flexible way to extract from that code base, make it available in DataHub going forward. The next part is this idea of a transformer. So this is something that's supported within DataHub. The idea is that when you are connecting to a source, so let's say Snowflake, maybe there's some logical grouping of ownership by schema, or maybe there's some logical, or maybe there's like a pattern around assigning PII to columns that have the word email in them. The idea here in a transformer is that when you're ingesting from a singular source, you apply patterns or kind of rely on those patterns to apply either, ownership, domain, description, kind of all the things we had talked about. And the benefit here is that this is executed every time your ingestion runs. So as there's, let's say, a new table added to your schema, if it has that pattern and it matches it, it's going to automatically apply your tag or your glossary term, your owner, et cetera. So it really just keeps up with the evolution of the data at source. And this is a great use case if you're maybe not actually managing those descriptions or owners or annotations within the source itself. So it's just kind of that intermediate step before you actually ingest it into DataHub. We've talked about CSV import a couple of times during town hall. This is really great for after the fact enrichment. So after you've actually ingested your data into DataHub, maybe you actually have a Google Sheet doc that's floating around and people are kind of maintaining some idea of like ownership or descriptions there. This makes it really easy to kind of crowdsource that information and then bulk ingest it back into DataHub. And what's also nice here is that it can go across sources. So you can do it, you can have, do a single bulk update for Snowflake and DBT and Looker all at the same time. And it isn't specific, it's not specific to, like you don't have to be super specific about pattern matching or, kind of source by source. So, this is an example here of us enriching resources across Looker, across Snowflake and DBT. We're applying glossary terms, we're applying one or many tags. You can also do the same thing, apply one or many terms. Same thing around owner, you can do one or many, and you can provide the description. So all of this is additive. As you ingest it, maybe as you're collecting this information, you can ingest and add to your kind of metadata model there. And like I said, this is just really great for kind of like bootstrapping your initial ingest of entities into DataHub and then crowdsourcing from folks within your organization. The next one is API enrichment. So this is going to be more kind of like ongoing or programmatic enrichment. This is really great when folks are starting to manage definitions as code. So as that code evolves, you can actually emit, or as those definitions evolve, you can emit those changes back into DataHub. Maybe you have some very predictable kind of deployment processes and going from maybe testing and staging and then into production. You can just programmatically emit those tags to, like, for example, attach a tag that says now it's in production. And you don't have to keep track of where the deployment is and then go manually apply it. Instead, you can just apply that as it evolves, and it's always going to be up to date there. This is also relevant to our kind of like circuit break, or similar to our circuit breaking. So, when your DAGs evolve, as those relationships evolve, you can emit lineage edges and, really just manage these things as the operational tasks evolve and the pipelines that support them over time. And then last but not least, you can always just go into the UI and, manage these definitions or manage these this enrichment manually. And so this is where we provide the ability to edit table level description, column level description from the UI. You can also add links. So if there may be some external resources that are helpful, you can point out to those. You can add your owners, you can add your tags, you can add your terms, add your domain. and all of that fun stuff. Of course, this is going to get a lot easier once we have the bulk editing rolled out that John demoed. But this is just a great way to, kind of like do a little bit more ad hoc or as needed enrichment as you go. So with that in mind, there's no kind of one right way or one perfect way to enrich your metadata within DataHub. So we encourage you to kind of mix and match those different ways, depending on your stack, depending on your workflows, and then really just find what works for you so you can keep it as up to date and accurate as things go along. Now let's go enrich some metadata, folks. And with that, we are at the end of our July town hall. This is the first time I think ever we ended early. I am impressed. Good job, everybody. Happy July to you folks. We can stick around if anyone has questions, but as always, we really, really appreciate your attention and your time. And we will see you on the internet, folks.
So Maggie, I posted a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hey.
Hey, I posted a question regarding tagging for like PII, tagging with a type of tag like PII.
Mm-hmm.
Are folks using that to meet GDPR requirements or CCPA or all the regulatory state requirements? Are they doing that? That's question number one. And then two, are they finding that effective?
Yeah, so I definitely would love to hear. I think that's first of all, I think that's a great question for, maybe we add that in Slack so we can get some insight from the broader community. But yeah, so I think the most common practices we've seen so far is that folks are using a combination of PII tags or glossary terms. So glossary terms would be a little bit more structured around kind of like level of confidentiality or like level of criticality of the access, whereas PII would, or just kind of generally a PII tag would say this is sensitive information. And what we've heard from folks is that it can be a really great mechanism to kind of communicate the usage or kind of set some usage guidelines around what can be used, and actually using it more in kind of a programmatic way as well. So if you have folks who are starting to like we've heard from some teams that their data scientists might be evolving their models really rapidly and building out new feature sets, and as the tagging of that data changes, they actually want to halt using anything that's sensitive, right? So if you have a bunch of these kind of automated processes, you can halt it if that PII tag pops up, so you're not mishandling that information.
Awesome. And that was the answer I was hoping you would say, because I'm
Great.
I'm campaigning internally that we really, strongly stress that everybody tags the PII data inside of DataHub as well.
Sure.
And we'll cross-reference all of it in the glossary too. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I think from the tagging part of it, especially at the column level, some of these kind of pattern matchings, so like with the transformer, pattern matching is a great way to kind of like do a bulk application of those tags and then maybe audit it thereafter. So maybe it's, just because maybe, like, for example, if the column name has like phone in it and you want to, and you assume that it's a phone number, well, maybe it's actually like a Boolean that says whether or not we have their phone number on file or something. But at the very least, you can just kind of like do a bulk application and then a manual audit after. So you can kind of err on the side of PII compliance,
Right.
And then kind of maintain it going forward there.
Awesome. Hey, have you ever considered doing a white paper on that?
Do you want to team up on one, Pam?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right, thanks, Maggie.
Thanks, Pam. And also, Pam, please do post that in the channel. I'd love to hear, maybe in advice data governance. I'd love to hear what the folks in the community are doing.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question regarding a follow-up that I already posted and Sean answered me, but I wanted to ask kind of again part of the regarding the bulk edits. My question was regarding multiple changes, or like if I want to add tags, maybe add ownership and so on. So my understanding, as John explained, that every change is applied as it happens, like there is no kind of committing happening by the end of the edit. But my follow-up would be, is this something to be considered? Also, like, would be, I'm new to the community, so kind of a very kind of naive question. I would assume there are audit events being generated. Are the audit events are related to one bulk event or one bulk session edit, or for every edit change?
Yeah, so on the last question, one audit event will be sent for every change, very similar to if you were using a transformer to add tags, for example, it's the same deal. One for every single change. And what I mean by every change is like for every table, you'll have a separate event. As for the transactions question, I'm not sure, like it is something we would consider if there's a strong use case for it, but I can't off the top of my head think of a use case for it. Did you have something in mind where you need to do both of those actions at the same time in a transaction?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about like ability to undo a transaction if something like was missed or something.
Got it.
Yeah, makes sense to have this.
So we do provide, or we will provide, the ability to undo by using the remove operation. So for example, in the add tags example, you can both add tags from the selected set, and you can also remove tags from the selected set. And when you perform an operation, that selected set will still be there. So for example, if you made a mistake and you added tags to the wrong assets, you can easily just remove them from the same set and then fix it and reapply. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible to do those undos, at least for one change type.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for answering that. Yeah, great feature.
Sure. Thanks for the questions.
All right, buddy. I meant to say, all right, everybody, and then got distracted and said, all right, buddy, but
I was going to say, are you talking to me? Are you talking?
Yeah. All right, buddy, you're done now.
You're done.
Amita, I just saw your DM. If you want to, would you mind DMing me on Slack, and then we can take this offline. I'd love to team up with you on PII tagging as well. That'd be awesome. All right, folks, happy July. I hope everybody's having a lovely summer or winter if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. We appreciate you all, and we will see you around, folks. Adios.